They can now.
Okay. Oh, in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
No, we talked about
Oh, yeah.
Put them up with
Oh,
the
yeah.
All
right.
Can I have everyone's attention? Hi. Thank you all for showing up today. I really appreciate it. I think we're going to have a lot of good information. Obviously, the technology is completely new and cobbled together with things that we borrowed from other people. So hopefully it'll work. We are recording this, so it's going to be available, and we'll let you know. Actually, I think the best way to get it for now will be to email Deb, and she can email you the video recording, and you can watch it again if there's questions and so on. We are going to have a question period at the end. Because this is our first run-through, we hope that our guests who are here just really helping us out and very much appreciate you guys being here. We'll be able to answer your questions, but because we haven't done this before, there's possible you have some questions we may not know the answers to, but we will get those to you. I'll write everything down when we're, during the question period, anything that's still hanging, and we'll do what we have to do to make sure we can get your answers. We just want everyone to be as clear on these issues as we possibly can. So this is obviously each person's only going to have about 20 minutes, so I think you're going to learn everything about retirement savings or everything about the business of running your own business or everything about health insurance. But it should at least give you a good starting point, help you formulate questions, figure out other resources that may be helpful to you as you look into some of these issues and so forth. So that's kind of where this all, what the sort of structure is going to be. This is Stacy Weiler from Herbine & Company. Herbine does our audit every year, and Stacy's volunteering to be here today. And I'm sorry, Mark is with USI, and USI does our health insurance, and they also volunteered to be here today to help us out with this. And the third person who is coming is from Nationwide, which is where our 401k is. And she landed in Philadelphia at 10 a.m. and is racing up here. She's actually on the agenda first, so we're going to move her further down so that we can, not hold anything up. So why don't we start with Mark, I guess, with the health insurance. Is that okay?
That's fine.
And, oh, wait, I'm sorry. Is that the right order? Okay, good. Perfect. So, Mark, come on up, and if you stand here, then the folks that are watching from afar can also see you.
And we have packets of information there as well. I understand that there were a couple of pages missing from the electronic version, so we're going to be getting new versions of that.
Share that with our other folks. And do we have that then here, Deb, on the?
It was just a couple pages that were.
Pages missing, but yes.
They must have not done that double-sided in the scanning process.
Okay.
Well, what I'm going to be covering today is flexible spending, your accounts on that, the medical with COBRA, how does that all work, and then exchanges. What's happening with that? The name has actually changed to Marketplace, so don't get that confused. The healthcare reform exchanges and Marketplace, the same thing. They just wanted to change the name. Starting with the flexible spending. We'll start with that and get that out of the way. Your flexible spending is still in effect, and as of until September 1, when you transition to a 1099 employee. Basically, how it's going to work is you will still get payroll deductions, the same as it's always been. Whatever you elected for the year, you will have available to you until September 1. So if you have any claims before then, you will still be able to submit those for reimbursement. So for instance, if last day of August, you go and have some dental work done, you want to submit that, you can do that. You can still submit that up to typically it's 60 days. I wasn't able to pull up your contract, but typically it's 60 days after September. So September, October, November, you still have opportunities to do that. Okay? So it's still in effect. September 1 is the cutoff date for things that you've gotten done. You want to make sure you get all your appointments before that. Okay?
So you're saying up until September 1st, we have stuff done, but we have things after.
Correct. Correct. All right. And if there's questions, I will be hanging out afterwards that I can go through specific if you have, something that you don't want to share with everybody, but you have questions about that. All right. So that's the basics of the flexible spending. You'd have to pull up. We didn't have access to exactly what you had left for the year, but you could typically go online, and if you store that information, going on your card typically has a website you can go on. Okay. So pull up how much you have left. And then you can use that up until September. Okay. The documents we have malfunctions?
No, just
Okay.
it's set up for me, not you.
The medical. Those who are currently on the medical plans will have access to basically 3 different options. Starting September 1, anybody who is currently on the plan, you're going to have access to COBRA. Now, COBRA is typically not given immediately in terms of you don't get the documentations on September 1. Typically, I think you have a COBRA vendor. Yes, COBRA Help, who will send up documents to you. They have 30 days to get the documents to you. They'll usually do it for them. So within a week or 2, you'll get a packet of information on COBRA. What it's going to have is your rates. The plan design that you are currently on is the plan design that you can continue. EasterSeals had 2 plans available, and everybody selected one or the other. With COBRA, you can pick that same plan that you are currently on. So you can't switch plans, but you can stay on the same plan. The difference is you're going to be paying for the full amount of the premium on that, and that's going to be in there. We also put that in here. So you have the 2 options. If you remember which plan you had, that's the option that you have available to you. And then the premiums are at the bottom. So that's what the monthly premium would be if you decide you want to continue with COBRA. You will basically have 60 days to elect COBRA, and that's retroactive. So if you have a family on your plan and you decide, you know what, I'm not going to be choosing COBRA, I'm going to be doing, for instance, an individual policy instead, you have 60 days with which to investigate these other options before you need to elect COBRA or else lose that opportunity. Once you've elected COBRA, you then have a period of time to pay it. So you don't have to pay it immediately, but you have to pay within 30 days of election. That makes sense. So you have 60 days to elect. Once you've elected it, you have 30 days. Now, you do not have to elect for your whole family. If you have a spouse and children on the plan, and for instance, maybe children are getting it through CHIP, which is another option for children, it's a state program, then your spouse and just you can elect COBRA. Or if your spouse can get it through their work, and your children are getting it through COBRA or through CHIP, and you decide to take it, you can just take it with COBRA. So you can mix and match. Anybody who was on the plan currently can do it. If for some reason you wanted to go on your spouse's plan with their work and your children needed coverage, you could theoretically just give it to your children with COBRA. So there's different mixes and matches that we can do with that. Okay?
They can also, if they have elected currently health, dental, and vision, they can pick any piece
Yes.
of that, right?
All 3 of those options are available through COBRA. Health, dental, vision. You can pick and choose. Was the vision plan embedded in the plan, or was it a separate? Was that
We have a separate plan.
Okay, then you can separate that. So you can just take vision. You can just take dental. You can just take medical. Or you can take any mixing and matching of those options. Okay.
Gap insurance also, right?
Gap insurance will be a part of that as well. And as well, flexible spending. Although, quite frankly, flexible spending, there's really no reason to take it. It does not make logical sense to take it as a COBRA option. Here's why. Currently, what's coming out of your paycheck is pre-tax. That's the whole reason to use flexible spending. You're paying for medical claims before taxes are taken out. So you're saving that tax money. Once you elect it through COBRA, it now is after tax dollars, and there's an administrative fee of 2% on that. So you're basically paying 102% for something that if you paid with your own cash outside of that, you're only paying 100%. So if you see flexible spending on there, I would not recommend taking it. It doesn't make financial sense to do so. But by law, we have to put it in. It has to be a part of that COBRA notice. Okay. So if there's any questions about that.
That's keeping EasterSeals insurance.
Correct. That's keeping it through COBRA. That'll be coming in the COBRA notice. When you, after September, so probably like the first or second week of September, you'll get a COBRA notice, and it'll be in that packet. Now, vision's very cheap. COBRA, the dental is, I'm trying to think which plan you had. I didn't get a chance to pull that out. EasterSeals, single person is going to be between $25 and $35. Family is going to be somewhere around 100, 120. Typically, with United Concordia's real rough ballparks, but they'll get those. It's basically premium plus 2%. That's what it turns out to be. Okay. There are two other brackets of insurance that you can get. Typically, the cheapest insurance available is individual insurances. The reason for that is currently, and I say currently, from September through the end of December, it's what we call medically underwritten. Meaning, if you say, go to Capital Blue Cross, you say, we would like to get an individual policy for myself. They're going to give you a very comprehensive, or you do it online, a very comprehensive questionnaire of information about your medical. They can actually ask you for your medical records. So if there's something on there that you disclosed, they may come back to you and say, we want you to provide the medical records for that. You can go to your primary care, your doctor, and get that information and send it into them. It's very comprehensive. They can increase the rates from the initial quoted rates, which are very attractive, or they can completely deny the coverage. That's individual. That's going on your own to Capital Blue Cross or any other of a dozen carriers.
You can do right here.
You can do right here. And asking for individual insurance outside of EasterSeals. Okay, and that's why they do that. Come January 1, as long as nothing changes, which things are changing still, last week something changed, healthcare reform eliminates their ability to underwrite medically. That's all part of the law. Everybody has to get insurance or be fined. And that part's not going away. So it's a nominal fine, but or tax. You would have to be taxed if you don't have health insurance. So between September and January, it's medically underwritten. Come January 1, it's no longer medically underwritten, but the rates will change. We do not know what will happen with those rates. We do know that the youngers and from typically right now it's in 5 or 10 year increments. That has to change in terms of how wide they can make those increments. They're going to have to shrink those increments. So essentially, if you're over 50, it might be more attractive. If you're under 30, it might be less attractive because they have to merge, or they have to shrink that decrement between those. So January 1, the medical goes away. Now, you could take COBRA. You could say, I'm going to go on COBRA from now till January, and then see what happens if the individual products don't work out or you don't like any of those that are available. We have a woman's name on the sheet, Julie Matthews, who specializes in the individual marketplace. She is available for all of you to call and talk about your specific information, your specific issues, medical claims that you might have had in the past, prescriptions that you're on. She has underwriting criteria that can help kind of give you an idea of what might happen if you go through the whole process. She can lead you along in that whole process. So she's going to be a great resource for you through this whole process. Once you get your COBRA notice, or if you want to try before September and put in for September 1st, when the individual, you can call her in August and she can start that ball rolling for you. Okay?
So, excuse me, is it right that if we decide to look at the individual way to go, is there a certain rate, depending on your medical background and what you're on, it will depend on your rate? So it's
correct
to each person.
Yes, what they're going to do is take your age, your gender, and who's going to be on the plan. If you're single, it's just age, gender,
right. And
they're going to derive a rate. Where you live, actually, they can do it by counties, and they'll give you a rate. And they'll say, this is the best rate you're going to see, and they'll show you and Julie will show you what options there are within, like say Capital will give you, here's the 10 options you have available as an individual, okay, in the counties that you're in. Then you're going to go through the underwriting process, and they're going to ask you all kinds of medical information and maybe ask for medical records. And then they're going to come back and say, here's the real rate, which if you're healthy, if you don't take any medications and you haven't been to the doctor in the past 10 years, that's very likely going to be your rate, the one that they quoted you. It's not a fake number that they throw out just to tease you into coming to do the underwriting process. It's a legitimate number that the healthiest get. If you have some issues, they may take that rate and they may up it 25, 50, 100%, or they may say you're declined, meaning we're not offering you any insurance. Again, January 1, they can no longer decline you. So.
And the rates won't be based on medical underwriting.
The medical underwriting, yeah.
The healthcare.
So the whole
thing is going
Be
away.
existing conditions that.
Correct.
The whole world changes January 1. And they're saying like November is when we'll know more about, it's October, November is when they're going to release that information.
So unless we're going with COBRA, we're going to need to do this twice, basically?
No, with COBRA, you just say, I want that plan.
If I'm not taking
Oh,
COBRA,
nothing COBRA.
then I'm going to need to do it twice. Once from
Yes.
December to
To January.
and then January do it again.
January, they're going to give you options. They're going to say, here are your new rates. Do you want them? And here are other options. And then you can make selections. Come January, it would be an easier process in terms of underwriting. Now, the other part of healthcare reform is, depending on what your income is, you may be eligible for subsidies for the health insurance. And it has to do with poverty limits and how much you can make. A family of four can make up to, I believe it's close to $90,000 and still get some subsidies.
Correct.
So the subsidies kind of vary depending on what your income is. So that's all January 1.
And so how do we find out about that then?
That'll be October, November is when they're going to release what the premiums are going to be.
And
And have to,
use Julie for that?
yes.
And-
Yep. And the subsidies, if you're under that amount, then it's set percentage of your income as to what the premiums will be. Now, how they will determine that and how the process of getting those subsidies is still up in the air. They do not know. The last I heard is they're floating it out there as a test balloon of the honor system. I don't think that works, but I don't think they know how to do it, so that was the latest and greatest, at least temporarily, until they can get figured out.
And we have to probably wrap this up, but
Okay.
I think it's fair to say that, January 1st, 2014 is the start of something that has never happened before. So, by January 1st, 2015, we hope things will be a lot more understandable. So, options will continue to evolve with healthcare reform, and also, for those of you that, you always have that COBRA option. If you decide to take the COBRA option, you can keep that until, and keep an eye on what's happening in the marketplace, stay in touch with Julie, or you can go over right away or anytime within now and 18 months from now, So you do have time to start looking at various options.
Quick question going back to spending. So that's been taken out, they're taking out of our paycheck. So what happens to our basic fund continuing?
You're an independent contractor then, and you will have no more taken out of your paycheck.
Okay,
So if what you're asking is, can you use more than you've put in, and the answer to that is technically yes. You can use it.
yes, but it was set for, I'm not sure where I am. I know all of it. No, I'm concerned that I use
More than what you put in.
Right.
Nope. It will. What comes out of your paycheck is going to stay coming out of your paycheck until September 1, and it ends.
So if you took out more than what you put in, then you win.
Yes. It is part of the use it or lose it law. When they refer to it as use it or lose it, the employer and the employee both take some risk. The employer takes the risk of my employees will leave before the year's out, and I've paid more than what they have. The lose it part is, the end of the year, you haven't used it all, you lose it. So come September 1, if you have put in more than you've taken out, you lose. If
But no, but they still have a little time, they can continue.
they can continue, well, they can anything they've
Or anything
used, they can submit.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes. I don't need down here. She's with USI. She covers the individual
Yes.
insurances with
A broker.
She's out of Harrisburg, so she can represent a number of companies, so she can kind of give you a broad overview of what the marketplace looks like for you.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Mark.
The other options for health insurance, if you don't want to call USI, no offense. This is a Capital Blue Cross retail store. You can actually come in here and talk to a consultant here. You can go online. There's all kinds of options out there. I also saw that Highmark is opening a store over where TGI Fridays is off of Cedar Crest. So there's plenty of options to do that. Julie might be a good resource because she might know a little bit more about our plan, but that's totally up to you. Monta just walked in. I'm going to give her a chance to catch her breath, and because she just raced up from Philly. We're going to let Stacy Weller from Herbine and Company go next to talk about running your own business.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I tend to talk loud, so I don't think you'll have a problem hearing me. I am a CPA. I work with Herbine and Company. I've been with the company for 8 years in the tax and small business department. So I'm helping individual taxpayers as well as small business taxpayers day in and day out with any tax needs that they have throughout the year. So I hopefully can give you guys a lot of valuable information. I'll be a resource for questions if you have questions, and we'll go from there. I'm going to talk to you about a lot of different things today. Starting your own business, the tax aspects that you need to be aware of, some bookkeeping items you need to be aware of. If you have questions as I go through, please let me know. We're going to cover a lot of details, which I'm not sure how familiar you're going to be with a lot of them, so if there's new stuff, feel free to ask questions. First item that you need to be aware of is that there are 5 different types of business entities that you could theoretically set your new business up as. I would suspect there's probably about 3 on the list that would make sense for you guys. The first one, and probably the one that makes the most sense for you, would be just to be a sole proprietorship. This is the easiest form of business. You would report all of your income and expenses on a Schedule C within your personal income tax return. You don't need to file additional forms with the state. You don't need to file another completely separate tax return. It's very easy to have a sole proprietorship. The next item would be a limited liability company. You may have heard these. They have a lot of press. LLCs are designed to protect the owners or members of the LLC from different liabilities that they might be subjected to. Now, the one thing that you need to be aware of, though, if you have an LLC and you're the single owner of that LLC, a lot of the times right now with the banking market the way it is, if you would need a loan, the banks aren't giving loans without that sole member guaranteeing that loan anyway. So that kind of voids some of your liability protection right there. If you have to sign and guarantee that loan, that I personally will make sure this loan gets paid back, then, you've kind of lost some of the benefits of an LLC that you don't have the liability protection. But it is an entity that's formed under state law. Every state's different. I believe everyone's in Pennsylvania, correct? We don't have any. And there's another thing that you do need to consider if you would choose to be an LLC. Pennsylvania has a separate filing requirement for an LLC, so you would have additional tax forms to complete. So just be aware of that. I do recommend contacting a lawyer if you do want to set up an LLC. It's the safest way to make sure it's all set up correctly with the state. So if you're interested in that route, that's my recommendation. A corporation is a completely separate legal entity. Again, there is the liability shield there, but if it's a sole-owned corporation, you sometimes don't have that liability shield. So you just want to be careful with that. And a corporation is taxed at the entity level. So that would be separate from you guys as, picking up income on your personal income tax returns. There'd be this C Corp sitting over here as its own own entity, which is your business, and then your individual return with all of your other income on it. So two separate entities, two separate filing requirements with the IRS. An S corporation is a spin-off of a C corporation, a little bit more friendly of an entity. It's considered a flow-through tax entity. So you would still have that separate corporate entity, but all of the income and expenses would flow through to your individual tax return. But again, you still have the two tax filings to take care of at the end of the year, but it does have some flexibility, and some people enjoy an S corp because they can still pay themselves a salary. Some people don't like the idea of estimated tax payments, which we'll get into. And the last entity choice would be a partnership, and I don't suspect any of you will do this because typically two or more people join together to form a partnership as a form of business. So those are your business entity choices. I would suspect that most of you would lean towards the sole proprietorship. It's simple, it's easy, it's not a lot of extra filing requirements at the end of the year, but it's up to you what you think might make sense for you guys. There are 4 types of taxes that you should be aware of as a new small business owner. The first one would be the federal income taxes, which everybody should be aware of that already. The taxes you're paying when you file that 1040 every year. The one thing that you may not have had experience with is the IRS does require that if you expect to owe at least $1,000 of federal income tax with that 1040, that you will start to make estimated tax payments, and they will be done quarterly. So just be aware of that. And the second tax that you will also become familiar with if you're not already will be self-employment tax. Self-employment tax needs to be calculated and remitted quarterly if you expect to owe more than $400 or have more than $400 in self-employment income for the year. So just be aware of that. The self-employment tax rates, you have your Medicare portion, which is 2.9%, and you have your disability insurance portion, which is 12.4%. So total self-employment tax is 15.3%. You should be aware that half of that is able to be taken as a deduction on your tax return, as if basically you're getting credit for being your employer and the employee of your business. So you really only pay the 7.65%. You do get the benefit for half of it being deducted.
The half of that right now is being taken out of their check anyway, so they're only realizing an extra 7.65.
Correct. Yep. Employment taxes. I don't know how applicable this will be. It kind of dovetails from the self-employment tax. If you would start your own business and you need an assistant to help you out with your paperwork or something, and you choose to pay somebody as a W-2, you need to be aware that these are some of the employment taxes that you'll be liable for as their employer. Just like, EasterSeals is your employer currently, and they are paying these employment taxes on your behalf. Just my employer is doing the same thing for me. And excise taxes are not anything that I think you'll have to worry about. They're very industry specific. Some examples of different excise taxes would be environmental, fuels tax, communication taxes. You guys aren't going to have to worry about excise taxes. Just wanted to make sure that you know about them. Employer identification numbers. You may or may not want to get an employer identification number. Basically, if you choose the sole proprietor route, you can use your Social Security number. Most people nowadays still choose to get an EIN number. We recommend getting an EIN number. It's free, it's easy. I gave you 3 ways of easily doing it. That way, when you are receiving 1099s, if you have to issue 1099s, nobody is getting your Social Security number. You don't want that to fall into the wrong hands. Everybody hears about that. A 1099 miscellaneous, it's a reporting document. We'll go over that in a little bit. But yeah, so the EIN it's a good idea to go ahead and file for an EIN number, even if you do want to be a sole practitioner and sole proprietor and do it on Schedule C. It doesn't hurt to get that EIN number.
How long does that take to get?
You can get it instantly. If you go online, you can get it instantly. They'll end up mailing you the actual form within a couple weeks. But if you do it online, by the time you hit submit, you have your new number. Okay.
accounting methods. There's generally two accounting methods that you will want to use. The key with accounting methods is pick one and use it consistently. Don't swap back and forth. That's not allowed. So you can either report your items, your income and expenses on the cash basis accounting method, and that's basically when you receive the cash, it's income. When you pay the cash out, when you pay your bills, it's an expense. And it falls within each respective year that those expenses and income occur and hit your books theoretically. The other method is accrual basis method. That is the income is reported in the year that it's considered earned, and the expenses are reported in the year that you actually incurred the expense. It could possibly be that you pay for it later in another year, or you get that income in another year. So I would think for you guys, it would be best to just stick to cash basis. I wouldn't see a reason that it would make sense to complicate things and do accrual basis. Cash basis, you can basically look at your checkbook and go along, the money came in, the money went out, and you have a good start of your record keeping for your new business. That brings us right into the next section, which is record keeping. Record keeping is really, really important for a lot of different reasons. Some that the biggest one is it's required by the IRS. You have to keep your records, and if you're ever audited, they're going to ask to see all the supporting documentation for your income and your expenses. And if you don't have it, you're basically going to lose deductions. It's going to be bad. You don't want to be in that situation. If you're keeping your records as you're going, it's going to make your year-end tax filing a lot easier. If you have it all compiled and ready to go at year-end, that you have your income numbers, you have your expense numbers, trust me, it's going to make your lives a lot easier. You're not going to be losing deductions. I can't tell you how many times people lose valuable tax deductions because they just didn't keep the records. And they know they spent something, but they can't find it. They don't know how much it was. Just keep the records as you go, and it pays off. The other thing is it's really important as a new business owner to see how your business is doing, to see where am I at this year in comparison to last year. If you're not keeping those up-to-date records and income and expense items, you'll never know. Am I right on track with last year? Am I doing better than last year? Am I doing worse than last year? And how can I fix this and get it to be better? So that's really important. I recommend this. You should definitely set up a separate business checking account and separate business credit cards. That way you do not commingle your funds for your business with your individual, your personal stuff. Just makes it a lot easier. It really makes it a lot easier. That way, if you have one credit card, you know that if you get behind on your bookkeeping, well, all the stuff in here was business. Not, well, I got to pull this out. I don't know what this was for. Just it makes it easier. I recommend to clients, especially new business owners, set up a time weekly and do your record keeping, do your bookkeeping. Get into a habit, a schedule, a routine of taking the time to do it. The one thing that, as accountants, we're kind of terrible. We're good at doing the tax returns and we're good at dealing with clients, but when it comes time to do our billing, we're not the greatest. And one of my partners one time said to me, "Do you not want to get paid next week?" I was, "Why? Why wouldn't I? Of course I'm going to get paid." "Well, if you don't bill our clients who pay us, how can we pay you?" And it was kind of, and it's a really simple example, but think about, if you get behind in your billing as part of your record keeping and all, you're not going to get that income coming into you guys, which is probably what you need to live on. So make sure you take the time weekly to do those, do your invoicing, pay your bills, and stay current on all that, and it'll pay off. I recommend for something as simple as what you're going to be starting, I'd recommend just doing an Excel spreadsheet. I mean, most people can work with Excel very easily. You track your income coming in, you track your expenses, you put the expense categories at the top, and you have do your week at a time. And by the end of a month, you have it all there. And by the end of the year, it's all there, and it's all totaled, it's ready to go, and you've just made your life really simple for tax filing and everything else. some of the supporting documentation that you will need in case you would be audited. And these items, as a tax preparer, I don't need to see these items. Like, you know, if you're working with an accountant, typically they don't want to see all this stuff. They just want to see that Excel spreadsheet that says, here's my income, here's my expenses, here's my car stuff, you know, and we use that. We don't need all the details, but you do need all this detail if you would ever be questioned by the IRS. So just make sure that you know you're keeping the supporting receipts. To prove out income, typically they would look at the Form 1099 miscellaneous you will receive. That is a reporting form that, and I'm not sure who will be issuing. EasterSeals will be issuing you a 1099 miscellaneous. It's going to report the income that you've earned from EasterSeals. And that's going to go into that gross income number that's going to get reported on your tax return. Yes. And, you know, you might have some other consulting work that you're doing. If you have your invoices, that serves as supporting backup. Credit card slips, if you do any credit card sales, I'm not sure it will, but, and the other thing the IRS will look at is bank statements. They're going to look and see, they're going to watch deposits coming into a bank account. And that's, you know, if you can't prove otherwise, they'll count all those deposits as your income. So you just need to be careful of that. And expenses, again, you cancel checks, account statements, credit card slips, the invoices with the, you know, check number on it. Those all serve as support for the expenses if you would ever be audited. Petty cash slips, it is very common to pay things with cash and use, you know, just write up yourself a little petty cash receipt and keep it with your records. You know, I bought stamps today for $36 cash. You know, it works along with the receipt from the post office, you know, but if you didn't get a receipt, just write yourself a slip. That way it's recorded. Most of the time people ask, how long do I have to keep all these records? We recommend 7 years. There are different statutes from the IRS's perspective, so be careful if for some reason you would file a fraudulent tax return or choose not to file a tax return at all. Those statutes on those years never close, so they could come after you 20 years later. Don't get yourself into that situation. Okay, so some of the business expenses that you know you should be thinking about. What are business expenses that you're going to incur? The IRS gives a very vague definition for business expenses. They are both ordinary and necessary in the course of your business. Well, that doesn't help you out a lot, does it? I mean, it's you can be creative when it comes to that definition. So ordinary, they say, is one that is common and accepted in your industry. Necessary is one that is helpful and appropriate for your trade or business. Again, they leave a lot of leeway there, but you just have to use some common sense when it comes to your business expenses. Some things that you may not be aware of, you may or may not. I would assume going forward you may be eligible to take a deduction for business use of your home. If you set up an office within your house, and is that what most people will probably end up doing? Possibly, like, you know, to do a specific area that you're going to sit and do your bookkeeping. You know, the IRS is very strict on home office and the rules of what dictates a home office.
So it's not a corner of your kitchen table.
Exactly. It's supposed to be a separated area that, you know, they could theoretically come in your house and look at it and say, well, yeah, I see that's 100 square feet. I get it. You're doing your work here. Another thing that you need to not have is another office location. If EasterSeals was providing you an office location, but you chose to work from home most of the time, you would not be eligible to have the home office deduction. But I believe you won't have another office location going forward. So that's something, and the benefit of the home office is if that office space is 100 square feet and your house is 1,000 square feet, you would then get to take 10% of items like your real estate taxes, your mortgage interest, your utilities, your insurance for your home, any other expenses that you incur within your home. You get to take 10% of those against the self-employment income. So you're reducing that self-employment tax, which anytime you can reduce the self-employment tax, it's huge. So something to think about if you want to try and set up a separate office space and keep those records going forward. Car and truck expenses, you have two options with vehicle expenses. You can either track your actual expenses, so you're keeping track of and keeping the receipts for your oil change, your mechanic bills, your gasoline for every time you fill up, and you're also keeping track of your mileage, your business miles versus your personal miles. Or you have what most people use, which is the standard mileage rate. The standard mileage rate is typically a rate that fluctuates, and it's given out by the IRS. Currently for 2013, it's at 56.5 cents per mile. So if you would track your business miles for the miles you're driving from your home, your principal office, which is typically going to be your home, to your clients and back, that's going to be your business mileage. And then on the tax return, you would be able to calculate your miles times the 56.5 cents, and that would be your deduction for your business miles on your tax return. Again, reducing self-employment income. I attached a, yes, sorry.
Is that door to door then? That's from our home to the first client?
It's supposed to be from your office location. So if your home is your office location, yes.
But that means we have to establish a home office then?
You don't have to for the sake of taking the home office deduction. If that's your only location that you're practicing out of, that's going to be your office. It doesn't mean you have to have that home office deduction if you don't want to go through those records and keep those records.
Is there a specific mileage log?
You are supposed to have a mileage log. You can find templates on the internet. If you Google mileage log, typically, we recommend to clients keep it in your car. When you get in that car and you know you're going out for the day, you write down the date, the client, what you're going there for, what business purpose it is, and the miles.
Do you think they sell something like that at Staples, like a little?
They probably do. They probably do.
Oh,
Yeah, a lot of people now are using apps. It's if I had to guess how many of my clients actually do mileage logs, I wouldn't want to guess. It's not a good number. When the client comes in and says my mileage was the same as last year, really? But it's probably one of the most abused areas. But if you're ever audited, the auditor's going to say, I want to see that mileage log. Could you make it up at that point? Probably, but it's going to be a real pain in your butt.
On client's name, but confidentiality, we can't use clients.
Like their initials, like they do with the funds.
Okay. Yeah. An auditor's not going to argue with you that, if you explain, I can't put their names down, it's confidential, they would completely understand that. That's fine. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Just so that you know what it is and where you went, so you can explain it.
Invoices too.
Yeah.
So you would have a backup. If they really wanted to track it, they could look at the patient's story.
I've never seen them go further than just looking at taking a couple flips through that auto log and okay.
And they all do that now. You guys are already keeping mileage log.
Okay.
So it's the same kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah, then you're already like 5 steps ahead of everybody else starting the business. So the next sheet I gave was just I printed out a 2012 Schedule C. Yeah.
I'm sorry, can I come back to
Yep.
The ordinary and necessary?
Yep.
So, malpractice insurance, license,
Absolutely.
that would all go under the necessary,
Absolutely.
and like equipment that we use or things like that would be in the ordinary,
Absolutely. Yep. All those things.
and that will reduce the self-employment
Correct.
tax.
Yep. The one thing about equipment, I'm not sure what types of equipment you're ending up purchasing. Typically, if you're purchasing a big ticket item, maybe $1,000 or maybe even more expensive than that to use in your everyday, the IRS does want you to capitalize what they call capitalized fixed asset purchases and depreciate them over the useful life of that item. So we're talking, I'm sorry, I'm not in the medical field, but let's say you buy a piece of equipment and typically that thing should last you at least 7 years. It costs you a lot of 5 years.
So if you bought a
Typically-
computer to keep track of everything, and it was a business computer, and it cost $1,000.
Yeah.
So
You're supposed to depreciate it over 5 years for tax purposes. Now, right now in the Internal Revenue Code, there are 2 different accelerated tax depreciation methods. One of them is called Section 179, where you can theoretically write off the whole cost of that computer in year 1 when you purchase it. There's also 50% bonus depreciation. I would think, if you guys want the bang write-off, you just use 179. It's simple, it's easy. But you also have to consider that the effect, you might need that tax break right now, but don't forget then you don't get the tax break the next couple of years for that asset purchase. So just, you have to think about those things as well. Do you want maybe the $200 write-off for 5 years? It's actually a little different than that, but, or do you want to save as much as possible right now? Most people want to save as much as possible right now. I'd be right there, in that same boat. Time, value, money, I want it in my pocket now, not 5 years from now, I want it now. But just be aware that there is a little bit of a different accounting for some larger ticket items, computers, equipment. A lot of people use a threshold. Sometimes people say anything over 500, sometimes people say anything over 1,000, give or take. If that's something, if you have specific questions, you can always shoot me an email and I'll give you, I'll respond and tell you what I think. But yeah, so just use I just wanted to be aware of that. I don't want to way too much to go into details now. They're supposed to, it's okay. You're supposed to allocate a business portion and a personal use portion. Because not everybody typically has a cell phone that they use for both. I mean, I use my cell phone for business. I use it for personal. But try and figure out, is it 50-50? I think that's very conservative. That's easily able, could support, I use it 50% for business, 50% personal. But you are able to deduct your phone expenses. They do sometimes have an issue with if you are taking a cell phone and a landline. Most people have a landline for home for personal reasons. So sometimes the IRS has attacked a landline, but we're getting so far away from that because I feel like not as many people have the landlines anymore. But
Do you need a record for that?
I mean, you would have your phone bills. Yeah. I mean, if you've gotten into a room with a really difficult auditor, they might expect you to prove out that, but I've never seen that happen. Just as, you're going to get the complaint when you hand over the phone invoices and they realize you've deducted 100%. They're going to say, you didn't use this phone at all for personal? Who's that? Is that your husband's number? You called him a lot. That's the type of argument you're going to get. If you've shown that you've made a conservative effort to split them, they'll be fine.
Well, and the other thing is, too, when you talk about the IRS and all this, I mean, this happens rarely. And you're not going to, well, in all likelihood, this will never come up. But these are just the things you want to do as insurance against a possibility, because you never know. But It's not like they're going around auditing every sole proprietor.
No, definitely not. I mean, it is very rare. I'm not doing my job if I don't at least warn you guys of what you need to be aware of. I attached a blank Schedule C just to, you can look down through the expense items and it might trigger some things that you weren't thinking about as expense categories. Now, these aren't all inclusive. I mean, some of the things that you mentioned, the licenses, that's going to be just other item that you get to write in and deduct. Something that I often, think about when you're doing your invoicing and you're mailing out your invoices, the stamps, the cost of the postage, if you have to use FedEx at all, that stuff's all considered business expenses. Any kind of supplies that you need to do the invoices, the paper, all that stuff, it's all considered a business expense for you guys. So just some items here to think about. If you travel, if you have to do any kind of continuing professional education, typically, you're allowed to take those expenses and take, the cost of a conference or the travel expenses to get you there, the hotel for the nights, or, that kind of stuff. It's all business. Now, theoretically, if you go and you extend your trip a couple extra days because it's in Disney and you have the family with, you're supposed to do an allocation for the personal versus the business. But those are all things that you can be thinking about as business expenses. And the last sheet was it's a payroll tax sheet. It has a lot of different little facts and information on here, just more of a quick reference for you guys. I know she's going to be covering retirement. You're going to have everything you need to know about retirement. There's just some of your limitations on here. A lot of just different auto reimbursement rates, just different things that, maybe you'll find useful as you start out and need a quick reference. I am always available. Gave my email address, my phone number. You can always contact me if you have a specific question. I'll be happy to, if I don't know the answer, I'll find it out for you. But I should know most of them and be able to get right back to you. Some other really good resources, and this might seem crazy, but the IRS website has a lot of resources for small business, for people starting a small business. They're actually very friendly and they want to help out people that are starting businesses. There's publications available. I use Small Business Quick Finder a lot. You'd have to pay for that, but there's just a lot out there to help out with small business owners. So, if you have any questions, feel free to let me know, and I'll be happy to help. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Stacy. There'll be a question and answer session at the end for a few minutes as well, so you can think about more questions that you may have for any of these folks. Next, we have Monta Williams from Nationwide, who's going to talk about your 401k plan and also what options you have in the future as sole practitioner.
Good morning. Let me apologize for being late, but you just don't have any control over airlines and weather and lost luggage and all that good stuff. I've had a travel week from just all get out. It's like, oh gosh. But again, my name is Monta, and I am with Nationwide Financial Services, and I'm here to talk about your current status of your 401k plan and potentially what may be some options going forward. So let's talk about the fact that you are going from a W-2 status to a 1099 status. Because with your 401k plan, it is designed to be contributions to come through payroll deductions, right? And through those payroll deductions, they are then sent to Nationwide and deposited into your account. Now, with you going to a 1099 status, you will no longer have that option of making contributions into the 401k plan as it stands, okay? What will happen to the monies that are currently in the account that you have with us? Well, you do have some options, right? One of the first options would be that you can allow it just to sit there, okay, and allow it to continue to accumulate until you're ready to retire or until you decide what you want to do with it going forward. The second option is that you could roll it over into an IRA. If you have an existing IRA, you can roll it over. If you don't have an IRA currently, then you can get with Jeffrey, and I do have his contact information with the investment professional for the plan, and he can help you with finding the proper vehicle to set up that IRA. Okay. And then finally, what you could do with your current assets would be to take the distribution. Now, that would be the very least of the three that you would want to do. Does anybody know why? Taxes. And then if you're under 59 and a half, you get what? Penalty of 10%. So basically, before it even leaves Nationwide, we're going to automatically take 20% for tax purposes and 10% for the penalty and ship it off to the IRS for you. So that should be the least of the three that you would want to do, is to actually take possession of those 401k dollars. Besides that point, it is earmarked for your retirement, and you're going to want to have something set aside to assist you when you are done working, right? So those are basically your three options as far as your money's currently sitting there. Any questions around that? Okay. Now, in regards to what's available to you when it comes to you continuing to fund for retirement, you really can't set up a 401k plan, or you could if you're going to open up your own business per se, but I think it would be quite expensive, and plus you're only one individual, and you do have the option of doing something different, right? And so that something different would be to set up an IRA, okay, and then begin to fund your IRA and make contributions that way. Now, the difference between your IRA and your 401k, whereas you had a maximum amount of $17,500 for 2013 that you could actually deposit, there are some limitations as far as your IRA, and I want to say it's around $5,000. Is that?
5,500.
5,500 for
2013, and there's an extra 1,000 if they're over 50.
Okay. So basically, if you're over 50, you can do 6,500 to an IRA. Okay. So there are some differences there, but that would probably be your best vehicle for continuing to save for your retirement.
And that's also tax deductible.
Yes, you can set it up as either a deductible or a Roth IRA.
And those things can be addressed with Jeff. Let me give you his contact information. His name is Jeffrey Forcino.
He's been at our open enrollment.
And Jeffrey is actually spelled Geoffrey. His last name is spelled F as in Frank, O-R-C as in cat, I-N-O. And Jeffrey's contact number is 610-520-1500. And so if you have any questions about future contributions, IRA, type of IRA, what's going to make sense for you, Jeff is going to be your go-to person. And I spoke with him, actually I've been speaking with him quite a bit, and he wants you to feel free to reach out to him and contact him with any questions you have about your 401k or what you should do as far as continuing to invest. Anything else? I talked about the fact that you have to stop contributing to the current plan.
Those are automatically.
Right.
In your paychecks.
When you go to the 1099.
Could you just speak? I don't know if anybody here is in this situation, but if anybody has a loan.
Right. So the other thing is, because I did see that there are loans out there, and technically your loan payments are required to come through your employer to Nationwide. Okay. Now, when you actually go from a W-2 status, it's almost as though you're terminating your services with EasterSeals, and you're becoming a contractor, right? And so technically your loan becomes deemable at that point in time, meaning the balance of your loan is going to become due. Do we have anybody in that scenario by chance? Well, I mean, I guess I should say, if you are in that scenario, reach out to Jeff, right? Because what's going to need to happen is, depending on what the dynamics and arrangements are made with EasterSeals, potentially you can continue to send your check to EasterSeals, and they can. Okay.
Our plan is set up that it has to be paid off. Is that what you were saying?
Right. So they have to. It's a loan. Either has to. Right. Okay. Well. Okay. So then at that point, then they will have to pay off the loan, and at that point, you are going to want to talk to Jeff and see how they handle that. Okay.
We'll have also a little bit of time for questions. We just want to get through all the materials. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Monica. One thing I want to also point out, Nationwide was very gracious to come today to help us out as these other fine folks were. But Jeff is a good person to talk to because he's worked with us with our 401k, but you can use anybody you want. You can use Fidelity, Vanguard, talk to those people online. You see these ads all the time on commercials on television, so you can use virtually anybody you want to. But you could start with Jeff and move on however you want to do it. Okay? So the next thing I want to cover is talk about invoicing best practices. Because we all want to get paid, right? So I'll take one. Nancy, would you pass over one? So basically, what we're going to go over on the front sheet is what is going to be on your invoice that you send to us and what needs to come with your invoice. And we're committed to keep the cash flow going for you guys so you can submit invoices as often as weekly, if you like. If the invoices get to us on a Monday, and it has all the documentation attached to it, which we're going to go over right now. In other words, it's a clean invoice, it's ready to pay. We'll get the check cut that week and get it out to you in that week's mail, in that week's check run. Okay, if it comes later than Monday, I can't guarantee that. You know, maybe we'll be able to help you, I don't know, but it's going to be locked and loaded if we get it on Monday. Okay, so you can submit them as often as once a week, no more than that. I think that'll be plenty. If you want to submit them once a month, you can do that too. The only caveat to that whole thing is we still need to stick with the prior month's invoices coming, prior month's invoices by the second workday. So you'll have all your super bills and everything. Okay, so that's the timing. Let's get to the essentials of what's on the invoice, which is all listed on this sheet here. You want your name, obviously, how you want the check made out, your address, where you want it to be mailed, your phone number, your email address. So that'll all be some kind of a form that you're going to put together electronically is the best way to do that. Okay, then you're going to want to have your service details on there. We're going to want to know the date of service, the consumer by just the initials, the same way that you do it on the expense reports right now for your mileage. We're going to want to know the program, whether you're working in EI schools, OTS, preschools, whatever you're working on, the type of service you're providing, and the site that you're providing it for, because some people do work at both sites, so we do need to know which site you're working on. The number of units, your rate, and your total by line item and invoice. Now I'm going to make this easier for you. Use Excel. And anybody who doesn't know how to use Excel, I will be happy to provide an Excel 101 class. There's 2 sample invoices in here. I can send them to you in electronic format. This is how we would like to see it. You can use either one of these. As long as it has the information that I have there listed as essential information, you can do it however you want. And you want to make sure that it totals. Now,
Didn't you say there's other samples
yes,
online that you can look for?
yes, if you
Templates?
go into Office 2010, you can, that's actually where I got this one template that looks all shaded and hard to read. I got that one and I changed it around a little bit for our purposes. If you don't want to get that fancy, you can just take an Excel spreadsheet and do it. I can show you how to make one for every month and in one file, so you'll be able to have it all in one place. Okay, easy. The most critical thing about these is to make sure that the formulas work right. So if you're not entirely sure about the formulas, check with me. We'll have a little go-to session and I'll get everybody set up on how to do that. Okay? Well, we're going to get to that. Because the other thing is we need attached to the invoices what I'm calling deliverables. And Alex is going to go over exactly what we mean by deliverables. So you'll need all your documentation is going to be attached to those. So for instance, if you have an EI kiddo, let's say you just do one kid that week, you're going to submit with the invoice the super bill and the session note is going to be attached to it. And we're going to audit those and make sure that we have all of the documentation. If it was an IEP that you had to do, or IFSP, whatever letters we're talking about, that would need to be attached to it. So in order for us to pay the invoice, we're going to go through this auditing service. Yeah, everything is here. It's Monday. That check's going to go out Wednesday or Thursday.
You would want an entire IEP attached?
Or,
I mean, they're like 14 pages.
No.
don't
We're
get
gonna get into the specifics of the documentation.
Yeah,
we will
it'll
need
be
more
entire
time.
Your goal.
Oh, you
we'll
mean
get
if we do paperwork? You mean if we do it on the computer?
Required paper.
Yes.
Like if I spend a half hour doing a report, you just want a copy of that?
Yes.
Oh,
Well, and we'll get into that a little bit with Alex, and there may be some things that we need to tweak. The deliverables is a little bit of a work in progress, so that's a very good question, so we'll get to that. But the the 20,000 foot view is we want the documentation attached to the invoice or we're not gonna be able to pay it. Now, let's say that, you submitted an invoice for 20 kids, and for some reason you forgot to submit the super bill and the session note for one kid, okay, even though it's listed on the invoice. The way that we're gonna handle that is we're just going to not pay that one line item. We're gonna put a line through it, and just to keep everything straight, we'll email you that that's what happened, or it'll come with your check and say, be sure to pay this one because this was missing. Just for that one kid. And then what you would do would be you'd get the information together and re-invoice that on another invoice. We're gonna pretend like we didn't even get it. Because if we don't, then we're gonna have all kinds of things out there. That paperwork goes with that invoice. It's easier if we just kind of start all over again with any ones that you needed to submit the documentation for. Does that make
We won't hold up the whole invoice.
correct?
Make sure
Just that
pay you
one.
as fast as possible, so you
Right.
get paid for everything.
Okay? Any questions about that before we drill down to the deliverables?
Like, I see a couple charter school kids, but they don't have a session note. I do a super bill, but I don't do a session.
Okay. Do you give them any kind of information?
Quarterly. A monthly log, it's a monthly billing log that I send directly to the charter school.
Okay.
That's just a monthly
Do
billing
we
log. and then
keep
do
a record of
quarterly.
that? In our, does Connie get a record of that? Nothing? Okay, there's one that we'll have to
Yeah.
look at.
We're gonna find
And I
a
can
few
do
nuances
quarterly,
like
but
that.
that's, yeah, but we don't do session notes.
Okay. Same with the Head Start kids?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I do monthly.
Right, but you don't do a daily note with each
Well, I
kid.
do a daily note, but it's on one form that goes on monthly.
I see,
Okay, those are good questions.
We'll
We'll
figure
figure it out
those
so that
out
it
with you
doesn't
guys.
make your lives burden.
Most of this revolves around the bigger programs like EI, the preschool, that run fairly much like clockwork. So some of these more nuanced services, we'll just have to tweak how that works. But no, we do not want entire IEP or ISSPs.
I don't think you would.
No, a whole chart every week, that's what we want. Any other questions about that? Okay, so then you want to mail your invoices in where it says down here to Easter Seals, just put it to accounts payable. Okay, and then I mentioned the timing already. You can submit them once a week. You can submit them once a month if you want. That's completely up to you. But we do need anything for the prior month by the second workday of the new month, just
And
like we do now.
You'll continue to get the envelopes that you get, so those will continue to come. The only thing is you're gonna have to put your own postage on them now. Because they may weigh different amounts each time, another possibility you might want to look into is the stamps.com, which is an online app thing where you can, they send you a postage scale and you can print your postage right off of the website onto special labels that you buy from them, and it's really pretty cool. It's like $15 a month to be a participant, and like I said, the postage scale comes for free, and you can just weigh out whatever it is and type it in, and it'll show you what the postage is, and it prints it out on this little stamp thing that you get, and on your thing, it's like having your own little post office at home. So that may, just so you don't have to constantly wonder, is it the right amount of postage or put too much on or anything like that. That's something you might want to look into. Or you can bring them by, whatever is good for you guys.
I have a question.
Yeah.
This is similar to what we're doing now.
Yeah.
I have a full week, Monday through Friday, and usually what I do now, Friday, I'll get all my super bill together, session notes. It's not always, I know Tasha doesn't always receive it by Monday, even if I put it in the mail, right? Especially in the mail.
Right.
So, but if I see a kid 4 o'clock Friday, I have to wait.
It's up to you. You can have your invoice cut off on Thursday.
You can do
I
Friday
mean,
for
put
Thursday.
your bills together Thursday night. You can have your invoice cut off Wednesday.
Okay, so
That's
we
entirely
do
up to
Wednesday,
you.
Wednesday, or Thursday.
Whatever you want to do.
Okay.
My only caveat is the second workday.
But if it's not the end of the month, if it comes after Monday, it would just be paid the next week.
Yeah.
Like it is now.
Yeah.
It would just be like
Yes.
a week.
Yeah, but if you're looking for that rapid turnaround, like you want to send it in and get paid like, within 5 days or something, like Maria's saying, if you want to make sure it's there by Monday, you can bring it by, in case we have it, or you could alter
your process there.
Okay.
So I don't think I do this, but if you do them like once a month, Tasha would be getting a month's worth.
Yeah, she wouldn't be too happy about that. We prefer to get them once a week. I think you would prefer to submit them once a week, so you'll have a cash flow going. Yeah, that would be better because then we can bill as well.
Then we can catch any errors too, right away.
Right.
Give us a month's worth of super bills and there's a lot of errors.
Yeah.
Slow
Yeah,
down.
I'd rather not get them a month at a time, but that's, you know,
Yeah.
that's within your purview with independent contractors. Yeah. Okay. All right, that is, it for the invoices. Now, I wanted to chat a few minutes about, communications. I'm in the process of looking for a secure email communication because, we're gonna be eliminating the Easter Seals emails for you guys. So we're looking to, I don't know if you've had any of this already. I deal with some vendors that have this, and you have to submit a password in order to be able to get into their email. I'm looking to do that, and I'll have that set up by February 1st so that we can communicate with you with that. So more information is to follow about that. But one of the hints I might want to give you to go along with some of Stacy's best practices is you might want to set up a separate account, like a Gmail account, that just handles your business type email so that they don't get lost in the One Kings Lane and the Brooks Brothers emails that everybody gets every day. And the other hint I'd like to give you is I've gotten some resumes in where the email address is like hotmama77. So, you know, if you have one of those, you might want to make it like a more professional email or something like that, because you lose a little bit of credibility when you're signing up for finance positions, and that's what your email address is. Okay, and when you do, if and when you do set up those new emails, let us know. I've got to go into Hixus and change all of those emails. We want to be able to make sure that we have current contact information for everybody. And the other thing is, if you change something, if you move, you change your phone number, you change your email address, and you update it on the invoice, that would be great, but don't assume that we're, you know, really putting the radar and looking for every change on there. So if you do make a change, just let Connie know, and then she'll pass the information along to everybody. Okay. Yes.
Also, when you talk about address changes, it's going to be, if you're going to leave your account at Nationwide, it's going to be imperative that you update your address with any changes as well, because you don't want to have your statements going to an incorrect address, and then over a period of time, Nationwide will stop sending these statements when they continue to come back, and then you'll end up on the missing person list, if you will. So just make sure you keep your information updated with Nationwide too.
Okay, thank you. Alex? Here's your hand.
Thanks. Okay, gang. The next thing we're going to go over is just getting your proposals in and what we need to do to get them done. We have a quick checklist. Some of these items you guys already have. We already have. Guess they don't like me at the preschool anymore.
Well, you know what, the kids are different.
Yeah,
Oh,
I know.
yeah.
Alex,
we already have a lot of this documentation. This is the checklist, guys, that we're going to go through when we sit down to do the contracts. You're either going to be sitting down with myself or Tom Mueller to negotiate your contracts. These are the items that we're going to be looking for. I'm just going to say a lot of these we probably already have. You don't need to get a physical. We already have that. We already have your clearances. We already have your criminal history info, and your FBI is good with us. We want to know still if you've gotten that CAQH done. We have your MA numbers too.
we have MA numbers, we
We
have
have-
NPI numbers.
Sorry, what was that, Kristen?
No, that's the.
Yeah, we have the MA numbers. We have your MPI numbers.
This is a list that I use, a standard list that I use when we have independent contractors. So we just show you the kinds of things.
Right.
we
These are
look
the kind of
for.
things that will be checked off.
I'll go through with you guys again, just to make sure the ones that we already have. When you sit down and we negotiate the contract, you're going to get a copy of the contract for yourself, and we're going to have Nancy will sign both copies and send you one back. We have the confidential agreement for contractors that will have the process. We already have copies of your current license. We already may have a copy of your driver's license. We already may have a copy of your auto insurance card. If we don't have those, we'll ask for them and get copies. And we'll also have you guys complete a W-9. And we'll also need copies of your liability and insurance, naming Easter Seals as an additional insurer.
So before we,
This is when we're sitting down to contract, Kristen. This is after we've gotten your proposal. That's it. Yeah, no problem. I'm sorry.
This is basically, once you have a signed contract with us, all of these things will get checked off in the business office to make sure that they're all there.
Okay.
Most of them will already be there since you're current employees, but if there are an item or two, you'll hear that, oh, we need your copy of your auto insurance or something like that, that we may not have.
We'll let you know and
Exactly.
we'll follow
This is
up with
our internal checklist, just to show you kind of what kind of stuff we need.
But let me jump back to the proposals. We're getting a lot of the proposals. Just make sure you send them in to Deb. Get your proposals in. The deadline we have is for next Friday. We'd like to start getting into the negotiations with you right away. We've already gotten quite a few, so please get them into us. And then after we get your proposal, these are the documents we'll need.
and those are like typical documents that people need. So if like I can't obtain full-time the Easter Seals, I might need to go look somewhere else and get other contract work that I have.
Your MPI number's yours. Your MA number's yours. Yeah, we can get those for you.
Yeah, that's fine.
Sure.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That way I don't have to.
Yes.
No,
Yeah.
you don't have to
go
bring
through
it
the
back to
hassle or do
anything.
anything. No, you'll have. Yep. We can get you copies for it. So we want to know the insurance companies that you're credentialed with or what you have. And that's the intro there. Now the important thing we want to go over next is the list of deliverables. And like Deb mentioned, this is a work in progress, but a lot of these are pretty standard already. And this is the documentation we're looking for to pay your invoices.
I'm sorry.
Sure.
We need to, like, if we haven't had staff for a while.
You don't need your physical. You guys are. You don't need those
I'll
clearances.
tell you what,
Just check it.
let's go through forms, let's check off what you don't need.
That would be great. Thank you so much.
Okay. We don't need your clearances. We don't need your FBI. We already have that.
We don't need your social security card. NPI, no. MA, no. Physical, no. Child abuse clearance, no. Criminal history, no. FBI, no.
Okay, well, thank you.
All right, and license, I would say, therapist license, probably not. I'm pretty sure that we
We
have.
probably have.
But you know, we need the new ones.
We'll just need to update them and we'll let you guys know when we need them.
Okay.
It's basically the malpractice insurance.
There.
Yeah. Yep.
That packet a couple weeks ago that was with our folder. You want us to put that packet with the proposal and give to too. That packet that has like a resume and
Correct.
Yeah, that's all required for the
Okay, that was
proposal.
okay.
Exactly. That's why we gave it all to you. So you
Just already all that.
Send
can
it
get
right
all
back.
back in. Right. That's part of the proposal process. And what this checklist is once you've agreed to a rate, we have a signed contract, we just run through that list and make sure everything is in place. And that's something we've been.
Not for the proposal.
Correct.
No.
That's
This is the
after there's
step
a contract.
After we have your proposal.
The proposal requirements are all in that RFP, and that form letter thing that you received just brings you right through what's required for that step of the process.
And remember, what we've done is given you everything back for your proposal. So it's really a simplified process for you to submit your proposal. We have copies of your resume. That's good. All your credentials, your license, all that we have. So it's just probably take.
Do you want us to update? I noticed on there, like it doesn't have, like for me, it doesn't have Easter Seals on there. Do you want us to add it on?
It wouldn't hurt.
Put it on and how long we've been there?
Yeah.
If
Right.
you'd like to, that'd be great.
Okay.
If
Yeah.
you want to give us what we have, that's great too. We're not going to require you
It's never easier for
to
you.
do a new resume.
Can we just add
Yeah, correct.
well, to the liability insurance? Yeah. Okay, are there specific places we're supposed to go to get that? Are there?
Good. Good. They're all over the place.
No, I mean, it costs a lot more.
Oh, you do? Okay.
It's like just by the date you would start.
For the year.
Correct. Maria asked a good question. When do you need the liability insurance? You don't need the liability insurance until the day you start working as an independent contractor, which is 9/2 or 9/1. So all we need to know in the proposal process is that you understand that you would need to have this in place. Not that you already have it. If you have it, that's great. But if you don't let it hold up getting the proposal in. All you need to do is indicate you recognize that this is part of what the requirements would be, and then you have time to make arrangements to get the insurance that you need. You can look around for it.
Since we're talking about insurance, I'm sorry, I just want to get this up. The Schedule B, which was submitted as a sample, is updated. The amounts are the same. The requirements are exactly the same. The only thing we added was a check off and a sign on thing at the bottom that was recommended to us to do. So I'm going to pass that around, and you can have a copy of that.
The
Like I
requirements
said,
are the
no
same.
requirements have changed.
And
What
then
is on here that there's an umbrella?
Correct.
That wasn't on the other thing.
Where's the umbrella?
It's on this chart.
No, you don't need the umbrella.
Except this is not part of the proposal, but this is,
I'm just giving that, that's part of the contracting process. I'm just giving you that as additional information because it's different than the Schedule B that you got originally. And
but it
that's all.
doesn't change the proposal.
Right. That's all exactly the same.
I'm just curious, why do we have to have EasterSeals named as an additional insured? I don't know, I didn't check that far into it, but that's a lot of what brings the price.
Some insurance companies charge for that, some do not. I know that our insurance company does not charge us to add anybody as additional insurance, so you may want to question that or.
It's whenever
Why
you're
does
working
EasterSeals need to
together.
be insured?
So whenever we're working together with any other entities, we always have to have that mutuality of the additional. So for instance, when we had Family Fun Fest at the Allentown Fair, we had to write a rider on our policy that they were additional insured because it was our event on their location. So there was liability there that we were sharing. And so that's how that insurance industry handles that. Since you'd be working with our consumers. You'd be providing EasterSeals services on EasterSeals' behalf, so that's where we have to be named as additional insured.
If you're in county, and then Fulton County would have to designate each county.
Yeah, we also do that. All our counties are additional insured. It's just that home mutuality.
Not if you.
But if we only work for you, then
Not if you're in a
Correct.
contract, just
no.
Yeah, we're going through the EasterSeals. We're not
Right.
contracting with the IU, we're contracting with only
But if we do another agency.
another agency. or
Okay,
you're a
guys.
Contractor with the county.
Do we want to run through the deliverables? We're getting close to 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so good. There's a lot of the standard deliverables like we have, and for most of you guys who are all EI, we'll start with that and then we'll run to the preschool because we don't have a lot of folks in school contracts. I know, Karen, you worked with a few, and what's that? Okay.
She's sitting right here.
For EI, what we're looking for is the completed time of the visit with your super bill, the progress notes, your quarterly reports when they're due, and we have those. You know, each county's a little different how they like them. You know, we know that because folks up in CMP, they like them 2, 5, and 8, and then here they like 3, 6, and 9. So we have a date when we'd like them in. We also want to make sure ECHO reports are completed in a timely manner, and that the outcomes, the initial goals are put into the system within 14 days, unless there's an issue with the service coordinator and they haven't put it in. You let us know and we'll chase it up. Yeah. But we do like those things, and we know that can happen quite frequently.
We give our ECHO scores to Connie, and then she enters them in. Will she
Okay.
still be
Yes,
doing that?
we can
Do
still
you
do
have a form that you fill out?
Yeah.
You give her the form.
Okay.
It's the form that we need, and Connie will continue to do that. For preschool, same thing. The super bills, the daily log, we need quarterly updates at the access billing. If that's billable time, we're going to find out about that. And in time for your IEP meetings. We bill this IU for, so we want to make sure that we capture that and you get paid for it.
What is daily
A progress note, a note.
Okay, they're also on a sheet that's not sent home
Right.
daily.
Yeah, we'll look at that.
We'll take a look at that. I'll come over, Chris, or maybe you guys can help me. It's for anything for the IEPs or outcomes that you have.
Quarterly, 3 months.
Yeah, we don't fix that. We have to do preschool.
Those are the things.
I think we do, but don't you need if we have a child who has a 3-month due, and for our invoice, do we need to attach that for our paperwork too, like our 3 months or 6 months on our island quarterly?
Yes, we need to make sure they're submitted on time.
Yeah. So you want them with the invoice copy?
How do we invoice for Pepsi?
How do you?
It's included in the AI rate for paper. It's not separated. You have to do the quarterly. It's
On
required.
your own.
It's part of the rate that
It's part of the rate that you get.
Is Tasha going to continue to be giving us like a chart so we can see?
Yes, we're
okay, we
gonna
saw
continue
this
to
kid
track
from
them.
the- Okay.
So the quarterly has to go with our invoice, because then they're gonna be late.
Not if you submit it on time. We'll make sure we get it.
Well, we only have 5 days from the date. If we just say I just handed in my invoice for the week and then I have a quarterly due, and if I wait a week or even 2 weeks,
submit it the
that
next
quarterly
week.
is gonna be late.
Submit it the
I
next
submit it with
week.
my invoice.
Submit it with the invoice.
Whenever you get the quarterly ready, that's when the invoice.
But they want our quarterly if it's due like whatever day, within 5 days. Well, it may not be within that 5 days then, if we wait to do it with the invoice.
Now it's saying 14 days, yeah.
If somebody's doing their invoice every 2 weeks,
But now
quarterlies are gonna be late.
it says here quarterly reports tracked by ES.
Oh, you can send it in before you have.
Send it in anytime. Natasha's gonna track it.
We can just,
But-
like I fax my email.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll just keep them. We're just gonna make sure we get them on
So
time.
now it's 14 days.
If-
Whatever
Whatever works best.
Did it change from 5 to 14 days, or is that an error, the 14 days?
I think
It's 14 days.
really
14
wanted us
days.
to have it so that it was on time.
It's 14 days, guys.
It's 14 from writing to county. I think it was 5 from writing to Tasha.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, the easiest thing is if you've got less time, we can change it to that. We're trying to make as few changes as possible here for you guys, so there's enough going on. So we're talking about the quarterly reports. They're due to the county within 14 days, but normally they're due from you guys within 5 days. Is that what we've been saying?
That's what we, yeah, that's why I was saying,
Okay,
they're
then I'm
gonna
gonna-
be late if we wait to submit our
I think that's the biggest question. If we're done with it, can we just send it in, or
Yes.
does it need to be with the invoice?
Yes, and Tasha will keep a track of
Okay.
it. If we're missing it, we'll let you know.
Okay.
And that's what I even say here, is that it's gonna be tracked by the admin, so, yeah, that we'll keep track of that separately.
So you can send paperwork without an invoice, but you can't send an invoice without
Without
paperwork.
paperwork.
Well, just not the super bills and the
No,
progress.
no, I
But
mean,
quarterly.
But the extra
Quarterly-
reports that come in.
yeah.
So
quarterly
basically what we'll
announcement.
do is this, if Tasha says, look, this, AJ's quarterly paperwork cutoff date is, September 2nd. So, that invoice period that we get from you, you have a visit to AJ, but we have not gotten this. We're gonna have to hold your AJ visit reimbursement until you get caught up on the AJ paperwork. Everything else you'll continue to get paid on, but the AJ stuff is just gonna get what you sort of like denied until you're caught up on that paperwork. And then it'll all backfill and
But again,
you
we
get
got
paid.
it early.
Re-invoice.
If you
Well,
got
then
it,
there's no
yeah.
problem. Then we
Right.
know we have it, and it'll just, everything will
It behooves everybody as much as we can. The super bills and the progress notes absolutely have to come in with the invoice.
Correct.
The other
That's what you
paperwork we're a
already-
little bit fluid with.
And that other paperwork, I know a lot of it's due through the computer anyway. Like we'll send in the outcome or send in the quarterly. They just have to be on time.
This is all new for all of us, so we'll just make our best estimated guesses as to how this is gonna work in terms, not the super bills and the progress notes, but the other stuff. And if we need to tweak, we'll tweak, and we'll just make sure everybody knows. But we'll work with you to make sure it makes the most sense.
We just really have to make sure that the stuff is submitted on time. Remember, the county has cracked down on us quite a bit for late quarterlies.
No, that's okay. We know this took a long time.
Couple other quick things too, guys. Just a couple. We have to make sure you keep your license up to date. So when you renew your license, give that to us, and we'll also track down. And also your training. What we're going to ask is that you submit quarterly training logs.
Connie won't be keeping them anymore, starting on 9/1.
And that,
For EI.
and you still have the full year to complete your trainings.
So it's still 24 hours.
Correct, for the
Just for
year.
EI.
If you want to wait also last quarter, we're going to be a little nervous, but that's your
And
choice.
we're gonna provide 12 hours.
And we're going to provide you 12 hours.
So half of it you can get with Easter Seals for free, and half you can probably still get for free, but you just have to find it. But, in case you have any quick questions for our 3 presenters today, why don't we switch off from this now? We can always get you this information again. And let's just ask if anyone has any additional questions for our three presenters before we wrap this up.
I have a question. It's
Okay.
okay. I live in New Jersey, but all the kids out in Pennsylvania. Is that going to change the?
No, you're going to end up having to do theoretically some estimated payments probably for here for the income you're earning here, and then take a credit in New Jersey.
Okay, but I could talk to my account about that.
Yeah.
They'll be able to explain to me.
Yeah, they should. And if you have any trouble,
Okay.
just shoot me an email, and I can dig into it a little further with you.
Any questions for Mark? Or?
You should just move these today.
Yeah. Now we're going to have another one of these in next month here. There's going to be another one in Reading next week. You can do what Shelley's doing, which is watch remotely to any of them. You can see a re-recording of this. You can call Deb with any questions. These folks have all given you contact information, so this doesn't have to be the end of any question asking that you may have.
Can we have copies of everything for the preschool?
I've
been collecting, I just need one of them that.
Sure. Yes, we'll make sure you get all that. Shelley, did you hear that? They're bringing stuff over to you.
I just need the ones that were from.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Just one set.
Okay. Shelley, did you have any questions?
Well.
Nope, I think I'm good.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Oh, some of us have talked about this stuff. We had a question about the week between Christmas and New Year's, even though EasterSeals is closed. You know,
I think it would be okay to now start seeing kids that week.
We all.
Or on any other holidays.
Okay.
As long as the family that you're seeing wants to schedule you then, you're absolutely welcome to be able to work whatever day.
You can kind of see kids whenever
They
you want.
want to see you on a Saturday, you can go on a Saturday. You want to see you at 7 o'clock at night, you can go at 7 o'clock at night. It'll be very flexible.
Okay.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, everybody.
We gave you a lot of information, so digest and contact me for any of our presenters if you have any additional questions.
Are we going to have a chance to discuss the different steps there would be for the classroom?
I'll come over and say.
Yes.
Yes, we will work out all those nuances. The goal here is to make the work processes as logical as we can for you guys. We don't want to you have to create new ways of doing your normal work. So we just need to kind of understand what that is and figure out a way to make it work in the business offices. So we just need to understand that a little bit better in terms of how that works and how to adjust on our end. Okay?
Yes, yes,
I never went through.
it did. All right, we'll take a look at that. I'll take a look at that. Okay. I actually have Tasha helping me with that. She's working on those today and checking to see what's missing.
Starting in September, are you going to still maintain that?